I am Jakob Rosin. I am a technology journalist at my everyday job. I also study journalism in Tallinn University. But my other job is dealing with different accessibility issues. And this job was sort of forced on me when I was born, because I was born blind. And I thought that being blind doesn't mean that I have to ditch some ideas I have in my life, or ditch some things that I would want to do. And luckily the world came to help developing tons of cool new technology, smartphones, computers, apps, different gadgets, which do help me a lot every day. And I would like to talk a bit about how do I use them, why do I use them, and why there still are accessibility issues with these. So first of all, I would start with smartphones, which I would be using, which I use every day quite a lot. I use iPhone, which is a regular iPhone. It isn't Apple special made. It is bought from regular Apple store. But I don't know if you know, but all Apple devices do have screen readers in them. It started at 2007, actually 2008, when iPhone 3GS was launched. This was the first mainstream smartphone. Well, it was the first mainstream smartphone, but it was also the first mainstream smartphone which had accessibility features. And there was a screen reader called Voiceover, which enabled the blind user to navigate all the functions of the operating system, all the built-in apps, phone contacts, messages, email, browse internet, do everything. And that was kind of awesome, because before that, all the solutions available to use touchscreen devices were kind of sluggish. They didn't work well, they took a lot of time, and people generally preferred older devices with buttons. But iPhone came and changed the situation. They have been developing VoiceOver since then, and they're still doing it. And Apple is very supportive on accessibility. And that's a good example of universal design, which means that I don't have to go and buy a special product made for visually impaired people. I don't have to download, or I don't have to buy an app which would help me to use this device. I would go to the store, I would buy the device, I would go home, unbox it myself, turn it on myself, and I can set it up myself. And that is the most amazing bit with this. Okay, so today there are apps everywhere. Everything you can do through app at some point. Apps are the things that help blind and visually impaired people a lot. They, I can, for example, I do use a lot of Uber and Taxify to call cabs, because a simple example, if I would call a taxi by phone, they would say me something like, okay, it will be there in like 10 minutes. And I would go outside, and every car which arrives in front of the house can be my taxi, because it obviously can come earlier than 10 minutes as well. But with Uber and Taxify, I can monitor my taxi's approach. I see that, okay, it's arriving in 1 minute, and if at this point a car pulls up, I know it might be my car. It's more probable, so I can walk up and ask if it's for me. And also, you know, I know the driver's name, I know what the car could look like, so I could describe it to sighted people nearby. Another example how apps will help me. It helps me to do everything visual. There is an app which helps describe different objects. You take a picture, it's sent to a server, and there is object recognition software which does recognize the object, or there are human workers who do this. So I can, you know, identify different packets, different objects with it. For example, different DVD or CD boxes. they all look the same by touching, but they are like printed different pictures on it, so you can tell with this app. It is great. It's sometimes too great. For example, once I wanted to make tea at home, so I took this app, I took a picture of the tea bag, wanting to know what flavor the tea would be. And instead of telling me the flavor, it started to read me the Lipton marketing text about how good the tea leaves they are. But I never knew what flavor it was. So it's sometimes too good. Also, it helps me to navigate on the streets. There is an app which is called Blind Square. It tells me where I am at the moment, the address and the place. It uses Foursquare and OpenStreetMap to combine this data. And it also tells me which direction my destination is and are there any crossings nearby. We're trying to make it work. I say we because I'm one of the beta testers and I help the developer by testing the app. We're trying to make it work also now inside buildings by using iBeacons. We're using iBeacons to announce the user where they are. Are there any, for example, in a shopping center, are there any shops nearby? Is there an escalator or a lift or information desk or a toilet or whatever? So, because big spaces, big open spaces inside, like shopping centers and airports and train stations, they are way harder to navigate when you're using a white cane or a dog than outside, because things tend to be replaced all the time. There might be some temporary obstacles, so the navigation, indoor navigation, helps a lot. Okay, so I would quickly show you how this voiceover works. A lot of people thought, I've seen many people say that, okay, you know, iPhone has Siri, so it helps a lot of visually impaired people. Actually, I don't need to use Siri at all if I would want to, but just to show off, I could try to turn on the voiceover with Siri, because you can do this. If you want to test voiceover on your own iPhone, then you can just say, hey Siri, turn on voiceover. And hopefully it does it. Except it doesn't. All right, let me just turn it on. It can also work with triple click home, which is very easy.
Voiceover on, 2030.
Right, now it's at voiceover on, and it's at 2030.
2031.
Okay, now 2031. I usually use English as the system language, but there's a way to read Estonian as well with the Finnish TTS, because it uses text-to-speech system to deliver me the text.
20.
So the way it works is, unfortunately I cannot show you the screen, but you can picture a typical home screen. And when I put my finger on some kind of icon, it would tell me what it is.
Facebook. Outlook, 16 new items.
So I have 16.
Double tap to open.
I have 16 new emails.
Messenger, 7 new items.
Or 7 new
Double tap to open.
messages on Facebook Messenger.
Phone.
So it reads me all the icons. It also gave me a hint. It said double tap to open. So if I would be a newcomer, I would know how to activate something. So this way, basically, by swiping, it moves from one element to another element. And for example, if I will swipe right, it goes just to the next icon until it reaches to the last one on this home screen. This is very useful for exploring different functions of a new application. The other way, I can just directly touch. I know my Facebook, for example, is at the bottom right corner, so I just can touch it.
Dock, Facebook. Double tap to open.
So it's and I know it is there. So there are other different gestures, but I won't go very deep into there. There is also one thing, however, which is called rotor. That's called because you do sort of twisting motion on the screen to turn the different functions. And once I set a function, for example, if I am in Safari and I'm browsing web, I can turn the rotor to headings. And now, if I will swipe from top to bottom, it will start going through the headings on the web page. and obviously it identifies the headings through the HTML code. So that's very important to have the headings on a web page, because those help blind and visually impaired people a lot. But I will get into this a bit later. So I will just demo you quickly the navigation application.
B-Square Beta.
I will open the Blind Square app.
B-Square Beta.
It will have this nice tune. And now if I shake the device, it would start telling me where I am at the moment.
Your location. Nearest crossing is Valuukoja and Lutsa. Distance 90 meters, 140 degrees to the left. Nearest address is Lutsa 6, Tallinn, heading northwest. GPS accuracy is poor, 65 meters.
Okay, so it really tries to pronounce those Estonian street names, but fails miserably. I usually use Estonian language. This app is also available in Estonian, but because I'm doing this demonstration in English, I turned this app into English as well. So yes, it tells me that the GPS accuracy is poor, so I would know not to rely on it very much, but it still tries to tell me information it knows. So that's the GPS app. It has lots of functions, but there, you can use your phone for more than helping you around or let you identify unknown boxes. For example, just for fun, you can also now take selfies accessibly. So there, I once found an app which is called Selfix, and it is not made for blind and visually impaired people. It was for mainstream people, but it talks. It's meant to use your back camera because it's better quality. And once you open the app, it starts guiding you how to take selfies. And I said, oh, okay, it's a great way for me to take pictures because it knows where the face is. I don't know where the face is, so it can tell me. So if I open the app, it just says,
I can't see you.
Yeah, it says I can't see you. And if I turn it to myself,
Down. Say cheese.
So you can take selfies when you're blind too. But everything, as I said, isn't that great. When you do make an application, there are some things you need to consider to make this app accessible. Of course, you can make it accessible, in different levels. You can make it accessible for the basic functions. You can also go very deep and make it comfortable, because we don't. It's important not to forget that accessibility isn't usability. The app can be accessible, but it can be very hard to use for the voiceover. I can get all the information, but it takes me a lot of time. One very common mistake, what is done when developing apps, is that developers just forget to label the buttons. So in the codes, the voiceover takes the button label and reads me, and usually I get something like button and button. So that's not very helpful. So it's important to label these buttons also for people who don't look at the little picture there, which obviously helps a lot, but not me. The app cannot yet determine what the picture is on the button. So all the controls, all the elements need to be labeled. Of course, you can go deeper. You can VoiceOver has its custom hints, so you can, for example, make a button which opens main menu, so it says menu button, and then you can write there a little hint. So if the VoiceOver user has those helpful hints turned on, in a few seconds the VoiceOver says double tap to open main menu. So the user knows what to do next, or how to activate this button. Or sometimes there are more complex features. For example, there is an audiobook reading app where it says double tap to play, swipe up and down to rewind or reverse. So one button can do three things. Because you can use different gestures on it. I, unfortunately, am not a developer, so I cannot tell you how to write the code. But I can tell you there is a lot of helpful information provided by Apple, how to make the apps accessible. And I tell you, if you are going to build, or if you're already building an app, it's way easier to make it accessible at the first place than getting lots of angry emails later from blind people telling that your app is not usable. Sadly, a lot of big corporations like to do this. I've been talking, for example, a lot with a task scheduling app called Asana, who basically ignores accessibility, which is sad because I have to use it every day at my work. But luckily, many companies have picked up the accessibility idea. Google has their own accessibility team. Facebook has their own accessibility team. They recently launched a very exciting feature. They're using artificial intelligence and some kind of algorithms which do actually try to describe me the photo. So when the photo comes up in my news feed, there might be like, I don't know, people standing on a beach. It doesn't, usually it would tell me like photo, no, 0 likes. But now it would tell me photo, I don't know, clouds, people outside. Now I do know a lot more. So that's what they are doing in big companies. So I cannot tell that only the big companies are bad. Some of them are really good at accessibility and making it better, as well as Microsoft. Microsoft is developing a similar system what can describe people pictures. So maybe if in a few years I will be here, I would wear smart glasses and I could tap them. It would take a picture of you and tell me that there are a lot of people looking tired or something. So the world of apps is very exciting. I like to try out every new app, well not every, but most of the new apps which do come out, because I never know when they will help me to do something different, to do something new and better. And that's awesome. So the smartphone isn't the only thing I use. I also use computer. That's the computer which failed to connect to the display, so I couldn't show you how it works. But it also has a screen reader. But there are two mainstream screen readers used by blind people. One is called JAWS. The longer name is Job Access with Speech. This is an expensive product, costs around 1,000 euros. And many people in Estonia do use it. I don't use it because I found another screen reader which is also used very widely. It's called NVDA. It's a freeware. Everybody can download it. Everybody can use it. And it is as good as JAWS actually. It's developed by donations. So, but it is free and it is very great. So those are two bigger screen readers. They basically work they basically work the same. Their function is the same. They do read things similarly, except some differences, but they're minor. And you can use it to read web pages, read different programs, read your documents, do your I don't know, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoints, etc., etc. You can mostly everything. And of course, there are also issues with accessibility. Since many things today are moving away from programs, they're going to web apps. The web accessibility is becoming more and more important. So, for example, usually, you used to collaborate with people to write one document. You just sent it by email back and forward. Now you just put it on Google Docs and you edit it together. And many years ago, Google Docs wasn't accessible, and everybody who was visually impaired hated it. Now it's become way more accessible, and I can work together with my coworkers to work on documents using the same, the computer, which is a regular computer. It just has this little screen reading software on it. Nothing else is special. All the keyboard is the same, the computer itself is the same, So there's nothing special in there. But if we talk about web accessibility, basically the same basic rules apply there. Label your elements. There are WCAG rules, accessibility standard rules when developing web pages. It would be helpful if people would follow these rules while developing different websites. The rule is generally that the simpler the website is, the more accessible it can be. If it becomes a huge web app, for example, I expect many of you have at least seen or know what Slack is. For example, Slack is a very big web application. You know, it could be, I mean, it is inaccessible, but this is an example of a complicated web application. But at the same time, there are accessible web applications like Google Docs and Gmail and Google Calendar and everything else, which work fine. So just the developers need to think about the accessibility when they're developing it and make it work. It can be made very advanced. There are several ARIA commands and ways to make the ARIA apps accessible. And it's becoming more popular every day. So I hope that one day we will reach with our regulations there as well, that those have to be accessible. I'm sorry I cannot tell you details, what keys do you have to push to make it accessible, but the only thing I can do is tell you how frustrating it is when, for example, there is a message in Slack, and by the time you get there, in like 50 seconds, there are already 10 replies to the message. And I got there late because the program itself is quite inaccessible. It's accessible enough to vaguely be able to use it, but not enough to be comfortably using it. Are there any questions so far?
Yes.
Okay.
Why iPhone?
Because I am an Apple fan. I used to use actually a MacBook as well. MacBook also has a Voiceover, but it isn't as comfortable as Windows is. iPhone, because they were the first. I tried iPhone first, and I got very used to the operating system. There is a screen reader on Androids. It's called TalkBack. The trouble with this is that every manufacturer, or most of them, like to put their custom OS or custom skin on the Android. And they forget sometimes that it needs to be accessible too. It's become it's become better in years. So now it is not as bad. There used to be time where you had to Google a lot for a specific model of a phone or a tablet, whether it is accessible. Now it's mostly gone. And TalkBack is the native screen reader of Google. It is basically the same. It helps you to read the screen, read the apps, read the icons, web pages, and all that. I have tried it, but I don't find it as comfortable as the iPhone screen reader is. Of course, there are people who use Android devices and they're blind, and they use the screen reader. But I'm not one of them. It's just I found to be more comfortable. I've tried to force myself to use Android for a week. I sort of succeeded. I ended up using iPhone and in the Friday morning again because I couldn't really bear the Androids. It was sort of sluggish. So yes, that's a general answer why iPhone. But I don't want to tell that the Android is unimportant. Of course, when you make an app for Android, making it accessible is as important as with iOS.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I have now a question.
Mm-hmm.
You're obviously using all different kind of messengers and obviously
No.
as well.
No.
No?
No. I'm using the same Facebook Messenger app as everybody else. I'm using the same Facebook app as everybody else. I'm using the same Twitter app as everybody else.
That's the
Yes.
How do you find it? How easy is it to compose a message?
I can really show you. It's not very hard because, as I said, there are accessibility teams constantly working, trying to make this app accessible. So there are many Twitter apps. There are many, Twitter has more third-party apps. I use the native Facebook app, and this is very well accessible. So I'm glad that it's working this way, that a big company, their main app is considered to be accessible, and it is kept so. Because if it would be like a third-party app, like for example, somebody has made a software for blinds to use Facebook on their smartphones, that means when Facebook comes out with a new feature today, I will have to wait for who knows what time until the developer who made this special app for me has time to implement the new feature. That is, if Facebook supports third-party apps to have this new feature, and it often doesn't. So that's why it's important to have the main apps accessible. Okay, but I will show you how do I compose, for example, a new tweet.
Spotify settings. Spotify.
No, I don't want Spotify.
Twitterific.
Right, there's an app called Twitterific. I just use it because I find its functions better, but the Twitter for iPhone app is also accessible.
Twitterific.
So now if I go...
Twitterific. New tweet.
Okay, there's new tweet.
Refreshing content. Finish refreshing. Tag.
Okay.
Finish refreshing. Tweet.
Okay,
Text field.
it just refreshed my timeline.
Next keyboard. Emoji.
And I can use the regular keyboard of the iPhone, the query keyboard, what appears on the screen. But I actually prefer to use a Braille keyboard. So Braille every letter contains a combination of 6 dots. So you get like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And why I use that is I can place my phone like this. I have my 6 fingers here to type. And I can use all the 6 fingers to type the message out in Braille, and then it translates it to the regular keyboard. So if I type, I am demonstrating accessibility features. Actually, let's book the official hashtag. The official hashtag of accessibility is A11Y, because 11 represents the characters between A and Y.
Number A11Y
of iOS and Windows.
Delete at
Nortal. Okay, there we go. Now I have it read this message.
Windows at to a text field is editing. Character mode. I am demonstrating number A11Y of iOS and Windows at Nortal. Insertion.
So number is the hashtag. And now I just know that the tweet button is at the top right corner.
Tweet button. Refreshing content.
There we go. It just tweeted. So, I usually do it faster. Right now I was trying to talk and write at the same time, and that's kind of impossible to do. But that's the way you type. I like the Braille way because it's just faster. As I said, I can use the query keyboard as well, but I do my emails, my Facebook posts, tweets, web searches, everything you have to type.
So you don't use speech-to-text software?
No, I usually don't. The simple reason being, it actually, surprising it is, it's good enough. It doesn't make so many mistakes. But I don't use it because often I'm in public. I don't want to shout out to my phone what I'm tweeting or sending texts. That would be kind of annoying to somebody, and sometimes I have private conversations. And also, there is not a support for Estonian speech recognition yet. So, yes, I prefer typing at the moment.
The Braille keyboard, is it like built-in or you have to download?
There is a built-in version as well. It came in iOS 8, I think. Yeah, iOS 8 had a Braille keyboard. But by that time, I had been using a third-party app. iOS 8 brought the ability to add developers to create third-party keyboards for iOS, so it can show up in every place there is a keyboard needed. Before that, I had to use this third-party app. I wrote my text there, I copied it, I went back to the app I needed and pasted it, and that took a lot of time. But now I just use this third-party keyboard. The reason being I won't use the iOS one is that the third-party app has Estonian Braille table support, so I can use all the special characters that are in Estonian. I couldn't use them with the Apple keyboard. So that's the problem why I'm using the third-party app at the moment. Any more questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a need for, let's say it this way, do you need such application which will tell you how many people is in front of you?
Well, that would be really helpful. But I mean, I expect the ability of computers to analyze visuals to become quite good during coming years. There are already some very good examples, you know, they're coming slowly to the devices. So yes, I hope at some day there is an app which can tell me how many people are here. You know, what do they? I mean, what emotions do they look having? Are they smiling? Are they sad? Etc. So I could get all this information, this visual information I don't have. And then, you know, maybe at some point I can have smart glasses, walk down the street and have the computer tell me that, okay, there's a post ahead, like slightly left to you or whatever. It could describe me, what's around me, and help me navigate. So it could analyze the live video feed as well. So yes, I expect that a lot of the future is in the image recognition.
So it would be helpful.
Yeah, it would be a lot helpful. I was at Garage 48 a few years ago, and I pitched an idea of an app which would tell me what color is the traffic light, because there are a few traffic lights in Tallinn which do beep according to the light, but not all of them. But I don't go only to the crossings where the beeping traffic light is. I go where I need to go. And if there isn't a beeping traffic light, I'm in trouble. And that's why I thought, okay, there could be a cool app which would, you know, tell me. I will point my camera there, and it would tell me what color the traffic light is. But apparently it was very hard to make in 48 hours, so nobody wanted to join. And the other thing to consider is that that wouldn't be a good solution, because there are still many, many blind people who don't use smartphones at all. They don't use any smart technology. They use computers in very basic level. So we don't have to forget these people as well. We're right now working with the Tallinn Transportation Institution to make the bus stops and tram stops more accessible. And there were a few people who said, okay, we can just make an app which tells you like what time the bus, what bus just arrived to the stop. And I said, yeah, that's a really good idea, but it's a good idea for only those people who use smartphones. But there are a lot of people who don't use smartphones. And there are a lot of tourists who don't have the app. So some solutions have to be implemented in the real world, not in the virtual world. It's great to have them. I wouldn't mind, personally, I wouldn't mind, but I know there are a lot of people who wouldn't get this access.
So one more question. How about speakers at the bus stops, which recognizes the bus number and tells you what the bus came from?
Yes, that's what they suggested as well, and we approved that this would be a great idea. Another good idea is to have the speaker attached to the bus. That would add another layer of accessibility to me, because if the speaker is attached to bus, and I know that the speaker is placed, for example, at the door, I hear the direction where where the voice comes from, and then know that, okay, the door is there, I know where to head. But you know, if the speaker is at the bus stop, I wouldn't know that. But it will be a lot helpful. In fact, this morning I was going to the central town to meet some people, and I ended up being on a wrong bus because I wasn't paying attention because I was reading Facebook. And I ended up on a wrong bus, and I got lost. I went out, and I thought, okay, I will be smart. I pulled up the GPS app. I knew where I was then. And I started walking back. I found a crossing, but I heard cars coming from 3 different directions, so I thought, okay, I'm not going to do it because I have never been here. I don't know what's over there. So I instead used an app and called myself a taxi and was safely on the way. But you know, that's a good example what happens when there is no audible system telling me what number the bus is.
I want to say that in Tartu, for example, they have this post things with the timetable about the bus, and there's a button that will tell you what time it is, what stop it is, and at what time the next bus is coming.
Yes. Tartu has solved this problem, and according to people living there, it works very good. I have no idea why Italy hasn't done it so far. They simply haven't got there yet. They once did hand out little remotes, a physical remote, to people that, okay, there are a few bus stops. When you get there, you press your remote and there's a speaker, it starts talking. But that's a really bad idea because you can forget the remote home, you don't know what bus it is, you can drop it, it breaks, and the battery might be dead, everything. So the idea of theirs wasn't, I think, very good. But I think, yeah, at the level of city public transport, the solution is to have a speaker in the bus stop or at the bus telling me what line number it is.
Can you give us some idea about how many visually impaired people there are in Tallinn?
I don't know in Tallinn. I can tell you that there are around 7,500 to 8,000 people, visually impaired people in Estonia. But that's also a very rough guess because unfortunately there aren't any official statistics about the visually impaired people in Estonia. I'd say like maybe below thousands of scores will be in Tallinn. But we also have to consider that there are tourists who are blind and visually impaired, and you know, it helps you a lot if a little thing comes accessible. I will come back to the apps for a minute. So usually when I went to a restaurant and I wanted to know what's offered there, I sat at the table, I googled the website of the restaurant, I found their menu, and it appeared to be a picture. It appeared to be a beautiful picture, but not a readable picture. So okay, I went to their Facebook, hoping that there would be menu, and there was. Here's our daily deal, photo, 0 likes. Okay. Then I pulled up another app, which is an OCR scanning app. So I took the app, took the physical menu, took a picture of the menu, and have the phone produce a text of this. It succeeded sometimes. Sometimes it came out very bad, and sometimes you could understand few words. And you know, it obviously depended on lighting and all that. And then a few days ago, last week actually, there was an app released for iPhone which is called Menüüd.ee, and it basically puts all the restaurants' menus in one app as a text. So I will go to a restaurant, I will take the app, it knows my location, it shows me the name of the restaurant, I tap it and I have the menu. And it's perfectly accessible, it works for me, it reads it out loud. And that's a huge problem solved with a very simple app. So that was a big trouble for me a lot of time. And then the app came out, and now I have used it during the last week already for 3 different times, because it's just so great to have the order chosen at the same time as others have, because usually it took like 10 minutes more while I was messing with apps and websites and Facebook and OCR and everything else. So this is a good example of a really simple solution for a very complicated and huge problem.
So
what is your opinion of the accessibility of the e-government services in Estonia, maybe also banking and telco services?
I think these aren't at all bad. In the fact that we have the fact that we have those services is already great, because that means that, for example, to do some kind of I can't give you any good example. Well, for example, if I want to make a company for myself, I don't have to go outside, go on a bus, get lost, find the correct road, find the correct building where I could do this. I find the correct door, go inside, get lost again, and then finally get to the place. That's by the time I'm really exhausted, I'm really angry and annoyed, and I don't want to do it. But now I just be in my home. I have my own computer with my own screen reader, with my own settings. I log into the e-government, and I can just do it in 15 minutes, and that's just so awesome. So that's already the accessibility. Now, if we talk about more technical accessibility, it is quite good. There are a lot of long menus. There are a lot of long lists in there, which makes it kind of time-consuming to use. But it is doable. It is accessible, and yes, it is great. As well as banking, the online banks. I'm using SEB, which is great. I know that the Swedbank's website is good as well, because visually impaired people use those every day. So I cannot tell anything bad about these. There's always improvements. As I said, accessibility isn't usability, and there, we have the information available, but it might not be obvious where it is.
But can you bring any bad example of Estonian services from your perspective?
Any bad example? Well, I cannot give you really a bad example at the moment, because most of the websites are quite accessible. If we talk about something, okay, let's say this way. If you have a basic website which has links, which has some form fields, some buttons, some headings, then it cannot be too bad. And mostly this is what those websites are, the e-government websites and the banking websites. The trouble might be, the biggest trouble at the visuals. This is not the case of developers, of course, but this is more the case of the editors who put content on the websites, that you always need to, well, it would be great if you could describe the pictures you put there. So if there's a picture of, I don't know, a dog in a garden, there is no need to have the picture titled img001.jpg, because that doesn't tell me anything. So those are the main things, what are still inaccessible on the websites, which themselves are accessible. So yeah, unfortunately, there isn't a really terrifying bad example, but there are some things which could be still improved, as for example the picture descriptions.
You have internal advertisement water.
Yeah, sort of. But yeah, I do. It doesn't tell me much of the banners. It likes to read Google Ads. It does read the Google Ads the way that it tells me that there's like a link for an ad. Then it says that it covers half of the page. It actually says that. Then it says like link for dismissing the ads, and then it says like link for more ads. But the funny thing is, it never tells me what the ad is about. So I actually use ad blocker too with Firefox to make these go away and make it slightly faster. So yeah, I would be glad to maybe it's funny because sometimes I would be glad to be able to read the ads properly as they're meant, but I never would ask people to describe their ads because that would mean there will be more ads, and I don't want these.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I heard that there is a screen with liquid substance, let's say, and which can show the characters.
Mm-hmm.
In the way you told, like this 6-digit.
Yeah, Braille. Yeah. There is. It's not in a consumer product yet. I've heard about this too. It's developed in universities, and it can be very exciting because they said that it could be quite cheap. Today, the way to access Braille on smartphones and computers, there are little devices called Braille displays, they come in different sizes actually. The smaller one of these display you 12 or 14 characters of text. The larger ones can go up to like 80 characters of text. So they are long one-row devices. There are little pins. There are the sections of each letter, and the hydraulics push up the little pins to display the information. And these devices are very expensive. They cost around, I'd say, 20,000 or more. So you don't want to drop these because they are quite expensive. So yes, the liquid technology proves to be exciting because it can show, it can show me Braille, but it can show me also different graphics, which might be even more important than the text itself.
You said that you are working as a tester.
Yes.
Is it mainly for the government, the software you are testing?
No, I'm just beta testing a couple of apps. Blind Square, the GPS app, is one of them. And I also am testing Taxify, for example, because I sent them emails 1.5 year, for 1.5 year every few months that please make your app accessible once they gave up. And sent me the beta test link, and I could talk to the developers finally. So something started happening. So that's a big trouble. Usually when I start, when I get a new app and it's really great, and it appears to be slightly inaccessible, I write to obviously the customer service. And I end up with somebody who doesn't know what's accessibility, and they say, okay, yeah, we pass it to the team, and that's how it is. I never get a reply from there. And it might be that it ends up being very successful. It might be it's very accessible, but it might be that you never get an answer. But it might be also like it was with Starman's app, our telecom Starman's app. They came out with their TV box control app where you can view the TV schedule, you can control your TV with it. And it had some accessibility issues. And they sent a very long letter detailing each of the issue to Starmer customer service. And I think it was like 2.5 years later when a developer contacted me and said, okay, we received your letter and we would want to talk about this. So never lose the hope.